Hello and welcome to the Fuel, Run, Recover podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Natchuk, registered dietitian, running coach, marathon runner, and mom. This season, we're breaking down running's biggest trends, hot topics, and myths, and turning them into practical nutrition and training advice you can actually use every day. Let's get into it. Hey runners, before we get into today's episode, I want to ask you a quick question. Have you ever wondered if your nutrition is actually helping your running, or is it actually holding you back? If you want to find out, I've created a brand new free resource just for you. It's called the Runner's Fueling Audit. It's a super quick checklist that's going to help you spot the signs of underfueling, low energy availability, or where the gaps in your nutrition might be that are impacting your recovery and actually slowing you down. It only takes a few minutes to go through, and by the end, you're going to know whether or not your fueling is on the right track, or if you really need to start making some changes to the way you approach your eating so you can start to feel stronger on every run, reduce your injury risk, and actually get the results that you're training so hard for. You can grab your free copy right now by clicking on the link in the show notes. Again, this is called the Runner's Fueling Audit. It's a free downloadable resource, and it's going to give you so much clarity on how you can start feeling smarter and running stronger. All right, let's dive into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Fuel, Run, Recover podcast. We are back this week talking about part 2 of our tracking calorie mistakes series here. And so if you didn't listen to part 1 from last week, that is probably fine. Like I said last week, these are in no particular order. So if you listen to part 2 right now, and then you go back and listen to part 1, these big calorie tracking mistakes that we're breaking down today are not like a hierarchy. So it's not necessarily like the biggest mistake down to the smallest or anything like that, but you can get a little bit more of background and context, hear more of my thoughts on calorie tracking kind of in general and that sort of thing back in part 1. So today we're going to dive right into part 2 with mistakes number 4, 5, and 6. And then perhaps we will revisit this series and go on from there if there's any mistakes that I am missing as part of this. But these are the ones that I could kind of come up with, reflecting on the mistakes that I see runners making most often who are tracking calories, the questions that I get from runners who are tracking their calories, some of the clients that I've been working with lately and just where they've been struggling with calorie tracking. Just trying to break it down for you so that you do not waste time and energy and feel frustrated that you're spending the time tracking, but not getting the results or the outcome that you're looking for. And so on that note, mistake number 4 that I see, and this comes up endlessly. It's probably one of the biggest questions that I answer when people are getting into the details of tracking and or coming into working with me. They're already tracking when they start working with me. They want to get my feedback on their numbers and that sort of thing. The biggest mistake is using your varying calories burned during exercise number to guide your calorie intake day to day. And so basically, if you can imagine, and if you use a calorie tracking feature, you're using a watch or something like that, that's keeping track of your estimated calories burned. Number 1, estimated calories burned. I can't stress that enough. I think the technology has probably gotten a lot better over the years, like having more heart rate data, having GPS data that we can look at running speed and stuff like that. The more information our watches have, obviously the more accurate they're going to be. It's not just a calculation based on, how many minutes of activity and your height and your weight, right? There's definitely more to it. It can understand effort a little bit better. It can understand speed a little bit better and those sorts of things. However, that doesn't make these perfect, right? That doesn't make these calories burned during exercise tools 100% accurate. So that's the first thing, right? Is you are maybe making decisions based on data that is not correct. And we know that there have been studies done in the past. Again, I'm not sure if there have been more recent studies looking at accuracy of newer watches and devices, but this was, what I'm referring to is some years ago at this point, but they were finding there was like, up to 30% error on some of these devices, right? And that's huge, right? If you're being told that you burned 30% more calories than you truly did, like that's significant. And if you're maybe eating those calories that you did not in fact burn, you can see why this is not going to result in the weight loss that a runner might be hoping for. So an example I have is from a client that I've been working with these last couple of weeks, a new client. So he has been feeling frustrated. He has been trying to lose some weight. He has been tracking his calories very diligently. And one of his questions was, okay, so, on Saturday, I'm doing, this long run. I had given him a number of where I thought maybe his calorie target should be, what I thought a more appropriate number would be from where he started. And so then his question was, okay, so then what happens on Saturday when my watch says that I've burned, 3,500 calories for the day? You're telling me to like stick with the number that you had given me. And yes, I'll tell you why though, because when I'm providing an estimate of someone's calorie needs and I'm giving someone a target to aim for, I'm already taking into account how active they are. So that their activity level, right? And yes, I know there's some variability day to day with how much we're training and our diet should change a little bit throughout the week based on the volume of our training. But I don't want people to have days that they're eating 1,500 calories and days that they're eating 3,500 calories, right? That's too much of a discrepancy. That's too much of a difference between those two different days, right? The timing is where the problem lies. So let me explain. So let's say Friday is a short workout day for you, or maybe it's even a rest day on Friday, right? So the calories burned from your watch above like your resting energy expenditure is like maybe just a couple hundred, right? Like maybe 300 or 400. So on Friday, you keep your calorie intake low, right? So you are not going over on your calories on Friday, right? They're say under 2,000 calories a day, what have you, right? So then you're going to do your long run first thing Saturday morning. And let's say it's a 20-mile long run, right? Like it's a long run. It's no joke. So you're waking up Saturday morning after only eating maybe 1,800 calories on Friday. You're getting up and you're doing that long run on Saturday morning. And then after you finish that long run, your watch is telling you that you burned well over 2,000 calories during that long run. So now we're going to spend the rest of Saturday eating whatever we want, as much as we can get in, or we don't. Maybe we're like holding back and we're not eating all of the extra calories. And we end up with a big deficit at the end of the week. Now, the big reason why I do not like this approach and why this often backfires and doesn't work for runners is because you are trying to burn the calories first, then you're coming and eating those calories back later, right? The timing is all wrong. Our brain cannot predict future food intake and do a good job of burning calories now or having a good quality workout because it knows that you're going to eat later, right? Instead, our body can only function and perform with the energy that it has on board right now in this moment. So you're starting that workout very poorly fueled, right? You did not eat anything extra on Friday to carb up or to fuel up for Saturday's run. I mean, maybe you had a little bit of a pre-workout snack or something like that, or maybe you did that long run fasted, but like you're going into it with limited gas in the tank, right? Limited muscle glycogen. And so then during that run, the quality of that run is going to suffer, right? We won't have the same endurance or stamina. We won't be able to hit the same intensity. We might really struggle with even finishing the run, or like we're walking for a good chunk of those last couple of miles, right? Rather than finishing and maybe hitting the goal pace targets that we have. So fueling up before the run, yes, even though that would mean on paper that you've eaten too many calories on Friday, right? But you're fueling up in preparation for the workout that you have planned tomorrow. And we have to get comfortable with that as runners, because if we are trying to like burn all of these calories during a run that we haven't eaten, and then we're going to eat later and like fill up later on maybe not the best choices, right? Because when you get back from a long run and you're absolutely starving, you're just eating everything and anything. And especially if you have that permission from your watch where it says like, oh, listen, like you are now in a 2000 calorie deficit. You're like, well, I better, go get that extra large pizza or have a couple of cocktails or eat all the chocolate and ice cream because I need it in this moment. But the reality is you needed it 7 hours ago before you started that run, not right now. And what I want us to shift toward thinking about more is this process, this ongoing process of fueling our bodies up for the work we have planned so that we then can have very strong workouts, very good quality workouts, faster recovery, less injury risk, right? All of those wonderful things that we want as runners, rather than thinking about each day as its isolated block of time. Because really, our clock does not reset at midnight, right? It's not like, okay, the calories we ate in this 24-hour time period, okay, body, like do the math. Let's see if that equals weight loss or weight gain. Oh no, you were over. Okay, for today we're gaining weight. And then for tomorrow we'll recalculate. Like, no, right? It's constant ongoing process. Our body's metabolic function never stops or shuts off, right? It's just always ongoing. So if we can even out and sort of space out our fueling a bit better and not always be chasing the number that our watch is telling us, I think that it leads to more consistency with healthier eating. It leads to better quality workouts for sure, better recovery, and honestly, in the long run, better results and better body composition and the weight loss that we're looking for. So that's why I do not think that trying to like chase after the calories burned is a good practice. I think it gets the timing all wrong around our eating, but also just feeds into some of these like false ideas and things about eating and calories and the way that our body's metabolic system works that isn't actually that accurate. So yeah, you're going to be over on your calories on Friday if you're feeling up for Saturday, but like that's okay, right? It's not going to be body fat. If you're eating carbs and you have limited muscle glycogen, you're trying to top up your muscle glycogen, that's all it is. You are not going to be gaining fat. It is harder to gain body fat from carbohydrate intake than you have been led to believe. All right. So mistake number 5. Mistake number 5 is, again, sort of in the same line of thinking, is assuming that the technology we have today is perfectly accurate when it comes to all the ins and outs, right? So I'm sure that if you've like been hanging out in this nutrition and fitness kind of space for a long time, you've seen all of the debate and all of the pushback and whatever about like calories in, calories out, and like whether it's accurate and valid or a bunch of garbage and totally wrong and false and whatever. And to me, from my perspective, where I sit with this is that, at the end of the day, yes, like calories in, calories out has been tested and is scientifically valid. But the technology that we have available to us or that we use as humans, right? Human error is massive here. The technology we have is not perfectly accurate, nor do we have the ability to test every step of that process. So at the outset, right? Calories in, the calories we consume, right? We have human error with portion sizes. We're terrible at estimating portion sizes, right? Like, again, if this kind of goes back to what I talked about in part 1 of this podcast, where I think that really good quality tracking for a short period of time is much more insightful than crappy tracking long term, because you might think that you're doing a good job of tracking. But if you are eyeballing measurements, if you are like not weighing food and measuring portions like every single time, like if you're not being really diligent, we're bad at it. And over time, portion sizes tend to get bigger. Right. So that's number 1, is that like we are kind of bad at this stuff. The brand might be different. The apple you had yesterday, you had a few more or less bites off that apple. Maybe there was a bruise on it. You didn't eat the bruised part, so you ate less of the apple, right? That stuff makes a difference over time, even though it seems so crazy and so small. But also, then when it comes to our actual metabolic rate, we also are just using math to estimate our calories burned. So, like calories in, calories out is valid when we have scientific research being done in a very controlled environment where they are able to capture every single in and out. Then we see like on during in these metabolic studies, this is like valid. But the problem is we're out here living in the real world, right? The everything down to like our ability to properly measure and track our food up to the fact that nutrition facts panels, like the labels that we're scanning, right, that we're relying on for this data, does not need to be 100% accurate. Food labels themselves can be up to 20% wrong. So you're scanning that barcode, putting it in your tracking app. It's telling you that a serving of this food has XYZ number of calories. Well, you measure out that food, you weigh that food every single time, it can still be 20% wrong. And so then again, like this is where I come back to, is this a great use of our time long term, or is there something else that we could be doing that would give us the same result but not maybe keep us so frustrated or like be so labor and time intensive? So every step of this process, there's going to be errors, right? Obviously, the number of calories we burn is just an estimate from our watches, right? They're using algorithms and calculations and just like estimating, right? Is the estimate maybe pretty good? Could be, but we don't know, right? We don't have anything better to test it against. And then same goes for all of our body's metabolic processes that are taking place in between the calories in, calories out, right? Like I like to sort of visualize it, bear with me, but like I'll visualize it. We think about calories in, calories out as being this sort of straight line, right? We've got calories in over here, calories out over here, and there's this like straight line, this like perfect mathematical equation between point A and point B, right? We can calculate the calories we've eaten, we can calculate the calories we've burned, and if we are within the correct deficit, then boom equals weight loss. And that's it's not inaccurate. It's not totally wrong or like a total bunch of garbage, as some people would have you believe, but more so that straight line is more of like a very squiggly line. There's a lot of question marks. There's a lot of variables. There's a lot of things like even down to different people, depending on your gut microbiome, actually get different amounts of calories from the same amount of food. So like even if you had a bunch of people and we all ate the same amount, we would each individually get or absorb a different amount of calories from that same meal. And now that might be enough, that might be enough for some individuals to say, well, doesn't that negate the idea of calories in, calories out? And I would say, like, no, it doesn't make it totally inaccurate. It just means that we can't like measure all of these variables on a day-to-day basis, right? In a lab, when they're doing research, they can control everything and they can measure and monitor all of this stuff. But for us out here in the real world, we have to like take it with a bit of grain of salt. And that brings me to mistake number 6. And this is a big one because I see a lot of runners that are stuck tracking and feel like they're sort of chained to tracking. They don't know what to do if they aren't tracking. And I kind of talked about this in part 1 in regard to like, you're not eating well unless you're tracking, right? Like tracking is your diet. But then let's say you do like have some good results or some good success and tracking is part of that. You do reflect on the data, you learn a lot, you make some changes to your habits, you get into a good groove, and then you're like, okay, now what? Right? Like I don't want to keep tracking, but I also don't want to like not have an eye on my eating. Like I still want to monitor things. I still want to know where I'm at to a degree, but I don't want to continue with the tracking in this sense that it's taking me 20 or 30 minutes a day. It's not really that sustainable to have to be that accurate. It isn't really allowing for flexibility with my eating the way I would want it to. I want to like be a little bit more hands off, but still keep an eye on what I'm doing and like still be tuned into my nutrition strategy. And so there's two things I really love here. I've got two options for runners who want to transition away from tracking, away from the data and numbers, or maybe you're finding that numbers like that and the data is just too much. Like you're finding that it's not really healthy for you mentally or maybe even physically to like have your eye on the numbers to that degree, because it's not for everyone, right? Some people find that they get a little bit too much into it and like really start to obsess, where a different option is probably ideal. And that's going to be, there's two that I love: the athlete's plates or food pictures and a photo journal. So the athlete's plates is the first one. The athlete's plates is a tool that I use in my Fueled Runner program. I also teach about the athlete's plates in my Fuel Smarter, Run Stronger ebook. But in both of those, I do go through the athlete's plates, walk you through how to use them. Basically, it's a visual tool that you adapt your portions on your plates based on your training demands. So it's really simple to use. It's very flexible in terms of the actual food choices. You can use it when you're traveling. You can use it when you're socializing. Like it's very easy because you don't need to know exactly what's in it or exactly the portions. It's about the proportions of different foods on your plate. So I really like it. I think that it's a great idea to get educated on these and use them, even if you are tracking and you are looking at numbers, to kind of incorporate this again, just as that like off-ramp strategy and just being able to get away from tracking long term. And the second one, which I really like, as I mentioned, is the photo journal. And I like the photo journal because I can tell a lot from a picture of a meal. I can assess meal timing, right? If we're taking photos all day long, I can look at how often you're eating. I can look at the time of day that you're eating. I can look at the like frequency of meals. I can look at meal sizes, not just like your estimated portions, but actually see what the food looks like on your plate, balance of different foods on a plate, like from a picture, and there's a lot of times when I actually prefer just looking at someone's photo journal compared to actual tracking, especially if the tracking is bad. If a person has done a very half-assed job of tracking and looking at numbers, and I can't tell a lot from what I'm sort of seeing in terms of the data, sometimes just looking at a photo tells me everything. And so there are some tools, different apps and programs and things that are coming out with AI that is basically like you take a photo of your meal and AI is able to analyze that and convert it into calories and protein and stuff like that. I've played around with some of them. They are not very good. So AI is very bad at measuring a portion size from a photo. So to take a photo of something and for it to be able to say, okay, that is so many ounces or so many cups or, and then to give you accurate data based on that. So I would say at this point, not really worth it. Just a photo is fine to get the analysis. It's no better or anything than what you would have done on your own. So unfortunately, it's not the shortcut that we would hope for. Maybe not yet anyway. But yeah. So you want to have a plan for like, okay, I'm going to track for this length of time. I'm going to use it to reflect, make decisions, change my habits. And then here's my exit strategy to get away from tracking. But now I've created these more sustainable, long-term, better habits that are going to fuel me more effectively, right? And that's the goal, right? That's the process that I want runners to go through as they work on their nutrition and they get better at their fueling. So I really hope that you enjoyed this two-part series about calorie tracking mistakes and why you might be tracking and it might not be working for you and what I think that you can do differently instead. Of course, if you need help, if you want to look more in depth at your numbers, if you are tracking and you're getting tired of it and you want something else and you want to learn more about the athlete's plates or any of these other resources that I mentioned today, if you just want another set of eyes on what you're doing, you want to go through your current intake and what you've been tracking, the data you've been collecting, talk about meal timing, talk about getting ready for your long runs, talking about improving the quality of your workouts and your recovery, all of those wonderful things, This is exactly what I cover and what I teach runners to do inside the Fueled Runner program. So if you've been putting a lot of effort into your nutrition or feeling like you're putting a lot of effort into your nutrition and it's just not paying off, like you're tracking, you're trying so hard to be good, eat clean, measure everything, and you're just not getting where you want to go and you're feeling ready to give up, then I would definitely recommend checking out the Fueled Runner program because it will absolutely solve everything you need to know about fueling as a runner. Whether you're currently in a season of training for a race and you have a race on the calendar that you're getting ready for, teaching you how to fuel for the demands of that training, getting you through race day, carb loading, hydration, intra-run fueling, all those key things you need to know. Or if you're kind of in the middle right now, like if you're in a bit of an off season, you're between races, and you know before you tackle another big event, you want to get your fueling in order and you want to maybe make some changes to your body composition, understand all of this a bit better before you take on that next race, then this is going to walk you through how to eat to fuel the different seasons that you find yourself in. So you can find the details about all of that, as well as the link to that ebook that I mentioned at the link in the show notes. And I hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you have questions or you have more mistakes that you want to share so we can do a part 3 in the future, then be sure to follow me and chat with me over on Instagram. You can send me a DM. All right, that's it for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you next time. Bye for now. On this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not to be used or relied upon for the diagnosis or treatment of any health condition. This information does not create a client-practitioner relationship and should not be used as a substitute for professional medical advice.